We are live. No, don't turn your channel. I know it's Joe, Dr. Exclusive on here with me tonight, but we're not going to talk just hockey. I would love. He texted me yesterday or today, Joe, and asked to be on. I said, sure, why not? Have a second person. A lot of people are busy for Christmas. He's got the week off. So welcome to the channel, Joe.
Back. Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Scott. Yeah, you said junk wax. I was open to talk about that.
Right. And I mean that we're gonna jump into the junk wax a little bit later, but I talked a little bit yesterday. I know you probably came on. What's up, Yannick? Love to talk. Have you on tonight? Say hi. We are. I went to a show yesterday. Very bad. I know my man Victor had a thing today about shows. I wanted to watch it before I got on because he gives me a little knowledge before I do this show on Sundays. Have you been to a show in your area recently? Has there been any outside of the expo?
Yeah, there's been shows, but I haven't been to any since the expo. Okay. Which is
have you talked to anybody just to see what the vibe is, or
not really, not anything more than I've just kind of seen online.
Right, because man, that show yesterday was pretty bleak. I know my guys in Philly went to a one in the mall show, which it tends to be pretty good. I know it's Christmas time. I know that people are busy doing other things, stuff like that. But for it to be that slow as it was yesterday, it was pretty bad. I mean, that was a very, very, it was it was just, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Slow, was it slow in traffic or
slow in traffic?
Excitement.
Well, that just, to me, it was just no buzz in the room. It was very flat. Really no excitement in the room. You put that well. It wasn't people making deals, making the moves, as the kids say. None of that. Even one of the guys came up talking to his buddy, one of the dealers, and said the show stunk. I guess on Friday was a little bit better for him. I told you before I came on, I had to get up this morning and do overtime today. I work second shift, but on the weekends when I go in, they want me to come in around between 6 and 7, 8 at the latest. So it was a little early this morning for me to get up at 6 to go in. I did not feel like going over there today, but I really, really was thinking about holding on to my money altogether and going back today, because I was like, these guys are going to want to make deals.
Now, were you seeing cards that interest you at prices that you'd be interested in?
When I go to shows, now hold on to your hats, boys and girls. I collect mostly vintage now. Or I get more vintage when I go to shows than when I'm shopping at home. I like buying vintage, bigger cards. I'm not a big dollar wheeling and dealer. If you watch my channel, I did pick up, one card, this Clemente. I've been talking to everybody about shopping on a budget. I took $200 out of my bank account. That's all. That was my allowance, $200. I'm saving up for 2 shows that I rather spend money at. People spend money on Christmas or necessities. This Christmas seems to be a lot of money being spent. The malls are not being overwhelmed. What they're saying is there's a great balance at the shops here in the U.S. and with actual online. The two are working very well this year, hand in hand. It seems like. We have Bink Scott here. Gary, what's up, guys? We're talking junk wax, Frankenstein collection, whatever the hell that is. Yeah, we're going to get into all of that here in a few minutes. when does my vintage? That is an awesome question, Gary. And Josh, good evening to you, sir. You could any questions y'all have. Scott, when's your vintage in and modern begin? And this is why I told Joe I'm gonna get his perspective on things. He does some baseball, but he's mostly hockey, or he does some all sports, right, Joe?
Yeah, but I like all sports. I'd like to have cards from all sports, but like 98% of my collection's hockey.
Right, and me, I'm the same way, and I'm out. Baseball is where my mine go. What's up, Clay? For you, where do you think vintage ends and begins for yourself?
I like the 1989 cutoff, personally, especially from a hockey perspective.
And now, may I ask when you were born? When you say that?
Yes, 79.
Okay, because I was born in 71. I don't like the 89 cutoff. I feel like there should be a different category starting in the 80s, right? I even have a little trouble with 70s. When I think vintage, I think 50s, 60s cards, right?
Yeah, I'm the same, but if you're going to have just one distinction between vintage and modern, one cutoff, that's where I would put it.
Well, since this is my channel, I'm going to put a caveat in there. I'm going to make it this definitional change. And that's a great, and if you told me and put a gun in my head, told me to pick a year, I would say 89 too. So does that make so it sounds like we're letting PSA organize our hobby. So do you believe there's a modern and ultra modern that moves?
That moves? Maybe.
Because ultra modern moves like every 5 years, and then you got modern. It seems like vintage slides with it.
I don't like classifying guys that were playing in the 90s that are retired now with the same guys that are playing, like rookies and stuff that are playing right now. I can't call that both a 90s card modern and like a 2023 card the same modern. To me, there has to be something different.
Yeah, I think there really needs to be a classification, and I think the only way that happens is if PSA does it. I really honestly think that if PSA puts another classification in what group, and I made a little rant against PSA in the past weeks, because shame on you that I cannot send a card that is the different. If I want to just send in a handful of cards, you're raping me over shipping. You're adding $25 basically to the price of grading. If I just want to send in one card or two to keep having a budget. So shame on there, because I just had a card that they did not grade get shipped back to me, and I had to spend $20 in shipping.
For that single card?
For that single card that they did not grade. And when I sent it to them, I paid $5 shipping when I sent it to them. So why did it go up $15? And you would think they would have being a huge company, they're already paying some type of fee to the shipping companies to ship things. I worked in a retail where we had that with UPS. We already had a deal where we print a label out from them. It wasn't like going to the UPS store and paying the same fee because we were a retail outlet. It's really, I think it's but we're not going to ever say anything, and I'll still keep you as in PSA like an idiot because I want to get the most out of my cards because I'm only using the PSA to sell things. That's it.
Well, in Canada, if you use PSA Canada, they'll hold your cards until they all get back, and then they'll ship it to you once. So you only pay one shipping coming back.
Is that Ship My Cards or PSA does that?
No, this is PSA Canada. Brad in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, see, Brad is super fantastic. I've asked before, can I get dual citizenship so I can use Brad? I keep talking about I have a bulk submitter right now, and I know Brad is now PSA Canada. He's not a bulk submitter anymore. He's leveled up. Congratulations to him. But I'm on going on month 14 here very shortly. I'm waiting on cards. I don't know when I'm supposed to say something. Um,
That's
you know,
tough.
yeah. Zach says, I'm not interested in a show if I'm not looking to spend a few hundred. Right now, that extra few hundred is buying Christmas. Skipped a show 30 minutes from me last weekend. Yeah, that's a great point, Zach. I can tell you this, Zach, and I'm not a Grinch or anything. I am a single man. Every kid in my family, I have a great niece now uh, that doesn't. I would love to know her more, but she doesn't recognize me. She's a year or 2 years old now. So I told my family starting last year, I opt out of Christmas. I don't like presents. I don't like giving them. I don't like receiving them. Uh, just show me where the food table is, and I'll pay for that.
Yeah. Well, I fall a little bit into that camp too, but I forget who you said made that post there. Is because now the show around here, they're charging admission to every show now, and it's like $5 at the least, and some
Right,
are up to $20 to get into a local show. And like, there's no way I'm going to pay that just to kind of look around. I want to be
right,
able to buy something that's going to make it worthwhile just for the admission cost.
right, and I go with 200, and the show I went to was literally 10 minutes from me. I was on the other side of Winston-Salem in the fairgrounds. Drive right through the city. I'm there in no time. Winston-Salem's not huge. It's not a huge city. It's on the smaller side. Um, but it's just the guy that runs it. I'm not afraid to say he's a jackass. He's a money grubbing whore. He doesn't care about anything about the what's up 357. Paul C. Stooks, thank you. Yeah, I love this hat. I love to see the Twins do well after living up in that area. But back to it, that guy, he did put up signs. And he didn't put up anything in the local Facebook groups, but he got his money for all the tables that were there. And then people that did show up paid $5 to get in. I know that arena must not be cheap because the fairgrounds has their security there working the floor, the doors, and also taking money at the door. But still, I'm like, it was half toys, half cards, but it was nothing just dropping, made me stop to sit down. Again, if it was boxes, it was like one extreme to the other. It was 25 cent boxes, dollar, maybe a couple of dollar boxes. Wasn't that many of those? Because usually I'll stop and go through those. You'll find some gems in that sometimes. Uh, but it was just nothing. A lot of dealers that just open up a case and throw cards in them. I don't know why they think that. To me, my eyes don't know where to focus when I'm looking at a case like that. Do you find that as well? If somebody just has a case and instead of putting them side by side in the case, they just kind of layer them so you only see bits and pieces of the cards. I
Oh
know.
yeah.
I know they want interaction. Hey, is that a such and such? Can I see that? But to me, it's just not eye appealing at all. What's up, Sanderson? What's up? Eric, that reminds me. Everybody, please hit one of the thumbs. Eric's not paying for this one. It's Christmas time. We're letting him off the hook tonight. I'm sorry, Carlos. I got to do it. I'm going to be 10% more higher level tonight. And they're 5% on Monday. Let's see. When did the card stock change for Topps 93-ish? I thought it's changed in 90. Did it? No, 90s stock is still cardboard. 91. I think you're right, Gary. 93-ish. I know Upper Deck came in early on with the different stuff. Battery. I've begun using the following for baseball pre-war classic, Monopoly, Tripioccoli, Junk Wax, post-strike exclusive license, and Fanatics era. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that. Let's see. Zach, I'm a single guy as well. My mom and sister spend money on me no matter what I say, so I feel obligated to buy gifts as well. I feel you there. And I tell you what, sir, mine do as well. My sister doesn't. Me and her, we have an understanding. I love my sister. She's my stepsister, but we've been brother and sister since we were little elementary school. So, her kids, I'm Uncle Scott. So when the kids were young and we all sat around at Christmas and opened gifts, and then I go to my mom's house, we did that. But I hate playing the game now, and I'm too old for it. I just buy my own stuff. Eric is paying. Come on, he's rich. God bless you, sir. Eric is a hobby legend. Boo, Eric must pay. Yes, Paul. I know Eric is something. Yeah. Eric is a friend of the show. Zach's sister and mom are always sending me gifts too. Battery, your name came up today in a conversation with my dad that I have on Mondays. We record on Sunday because I asked in Mike sales group, which I felt like was a very good discussion this past week. I meant to tell Mike that it was more than just a car sale. It was a very good discussion. I asked him over this thing. We're going to topic. One of the topics tonight was Chipper Jones or Austin Riley. And he said Austin Riley. I can't fault you on that. I can't. Either way you went with that was a no brain. I could go, okay. I can see both. I did that to my dad, and my dad said Chipper Jones. My dad he's a switch hitting guy with higher average. So I was like, hey, I don't think there's a bad answer on that when you talk about those guys. So, yeah. So to me, the card shows. There's going to be some in early next year. I wasn't planning on going, but man, I might want to go just to see what the foot traffic is. Because my plan was to go up to do a long weekend and go to the Philly show, the next big Philly show in the spring. I heard that one's pretty good. I know their last show, they did really, really well in the fall. I know the Expo did really, really well. I know, Dallas was down. This is not a huge show. It hasn't been backed in a long time. It's not one of those that is a destination huge. It's 300 tables. But I don't know. I went to it last year and it was a lot more crowded than what it was this year. And I just think it's too close to Christmas for me. Having a show in December, I don't think is a very smart move. I think December you should just wait till after Christmas where people get money as gifts. Wouldn't that be smarter? Wouldn't the first week in January weekend would be smarter? Shoot, have a New Year's Eve special weekend. I don't know. To me, that would be smarter. My scale's 50. How you doing, Matt McNeil? I don't know if it's your first time here, but I don't remember seeing that name. Welcome. My scale is 52 to 69 vintage, 70 to 88 modern, 89 to 95 junk wax, 96 to 02 new age, 03 to present, the new era. And that's not wrong. I feel like there should be something else in there for that 80s, 90s, if not late 70s as well. Kind of, to me, that 78 to 95 kind of gives one era of cards, even though that's too short. And so I just wanted to look it up today. When they were talking junk wax the other day, everybody refers to this term junk wax, and I want to talk about that for a minute. So junk wax roughly covers the period, and this is from the Atlantic, the Athletic. I'm sorry. The junk wax era roughly covers the period of 1986 to 93. which is when card companies were overproducing cards and leagues were over licensing to anyone who wanted in on the gold rush. For that reason, there are a lot of cards out there for this era, which makes them relatively cheap. And we're going to talk about that for a minute. I hate this term now. I always ask, during that time period, did people know we were in the junk wax era? They might have thought stuff was overproduced, but my God, do you hear that term a lot now at this moment in time we're living in now? But when you say, are we in a modern junk wax, people want to, no, we're not. But stuff's produced to the moon, Boom era, right? I just feel like, so grading was introduced right around this same early 90s period, if I remember correctly, without looking it up. I think that changed the junk era. I really do. And listen, let's hear me out, everybody. I feel, and this is feelings, I don't, my opinion, some like fat guy here, not on the North Pole, but in Winston-Salem. I feel like grading changed all of that. Because in that time period, yes, there might have been, started with 3 companies, then we added Score and Upper Deck and everything else that came with it. But with grading, the cards weren't that. Cards were not great as in centering, edges, corners. Grading changed that. It gave it artificial numbers where people were like, okay, I have a 10. And what did they start grading? They started grading older stuff, but they found out having a 10 is more desirable. So the older stuff was hard to get the higher grades in. I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm going down this trail. But it was easier to get maybe higher grades than some of the newer stuff. So a lot more of the newer stuff started getting graded. Now, this is a long timeline. We're coming up to now. This is not all directly. Because a statement was brought up in this show last week, and I'm going to drop the name and I'll send a link to their channel. It's a great channel. They're actually live right now. Please watch them on rerun later. I love for everybody to go over there and give them a thumbs up and a subscribe. Yes, Gary. And I'll get to y'all's comments in a minute. I'm not looking. But a comment was made. We'll talk about values, but they were talking about 9s, right? And how the 9 was really cheap, and there was a lot of them in pop. Okay, but how many 10s were they? Why is a 10 times more? Because there's not a lot of those in pop, and what's out there is in people's hands. And I mean, let's be honest, pops don't go down, they go up. Don't that make those cards a little bit more desirable than to call them junk wax? And when you make that term, it makes it such a bad term. And we're going to talk about another term later. I can't see how junk wax is a good term. Do you think that way when you hear the term junk wax? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I don't like the term either, but it's almost like everyone just uses that term, not even thinking about what it means. Mm-hmm. That's just the term of the era. So some people don't mean to be calling it junk. Because you probably said, I probably said, even though I know I like those cards.
Right. And I wanted to give a time range, right? I've seen late 80s to early 90s. But man, people want to call up into the 2000s junk era. You will hear people calling 82, 83 junk era, 81. You'll start hearing this term being thrown around to this large section of cards that, by the way, changed the industry. If we didn't have that era and the competition between the manufacturers, we wouldn't have Finest. We wouldn't have some of the coolest inserts in modern day cards in the later 90s, early 2000s. Do you think that? I mean, chromium came out of the junk era. The junk era created these competitions that made the cards better for us in the modern era. So we have numbering. Numbering started. The autos, all this stuff kind of materialized to make these cards more desirable. The chase, if you will, that Fanatics is using, they're marketing the chase very well right now. Almost to nauseating. This thing with having what if cards with Tom Brady and Belichick, I don't understand it. People are running after it like it's the best thing ever. Having Bowman first cards of dead guys that played in early 1900s. Or even later. I appreciate it, but they're doing this for one thing, to drive up prices, and then they're banking on it. If anybody looks at how much Bowman draft is right now for a box, I mean, what Super Jumbo $700 or something from Topps? This ain't secondary market. They're doing a great job because people are eating it up. Let's look at some of the things here. Anything to add to that, Joe? I wanted to get that thought out of my head. I was banging.
No, I agree. I agree. Like, nobody calls like 93 Finest Refractor junk wax.
Right, and it's always what are we talking? Want to get to that? Yeah, you're right. You're not going to call that one junk wax, but they'll call the 93 Topps junk wax. Okay, Zach, I feel like your age just gives you a different perspective when it comes to eras. Yeah, that's why I always ask, hey, because part of it also is I don't feel like I'm quite vintage yet. And I was born in 71. 1986 to 94 was junk wax. Then there was a strike and things changed. Yeah, that's a good way. Junk wax killed my love for the hobby, and that's when I started to collect vintage only. And I can understand that, Eric. I can understand that. And I'll get to something along those lines. Another reason why I can see why people go to vintage, or at least getting players that have retired. Agree, Scott. Check out some PSA 10 for cards from the junk wax era, right? In 1991, Don Ross PSA 10 of Tony Gwynn sold for $146.69 just at the end of October, right? The majority, we got Wesker Grove. Hey, Ed, I sent you an invite. If you want to jump on, you're more than welcome. The majority of people resent that era because they lost their ass speculating and buying sealed sets, thinking they would be rich in the coming decades. Yes, and I have people coming to me all the time. Hey, I got cards from my childhood. And before I know what childhood they were in and what the cards are going to be. And yes, we all snicker because we see those cards. But if they were graded, hey, let me take a look at them, right? If that's a graded cards, we're looking at them. It always comes back to money or the implications applied. Right. And Ed, that was going to be the second part of this talk. Some things that you brought up to me in the past week. And we got Amish Dave Archer. Hey, Dave, what's going on, buddy? It's got that term because of the availability of that era cards. Every store had cards. No matter nowhere you went, right? Packs and boxes were readily available. Agree. I know at the price clubs at that time and other large warehouses, there were stacks of them in the floor. I get that. Guess what? Costco had cards on pallets this year. I bought them. I bought some from there. They had Topps flagship in the store. Second, they had a bundle where it was some first series, second series, and update with some insert cards in them. So that is. It's funny. I see stuff like that, but I see the same thing today. But people don't want to say we're in, and I don't want to say it either. I don't want to admit that we're in a junk because I think it is different with the numbering, with all the different things. the cards are so much better made, even though we yell about the quality. That's because we're grown men wanting perfection in a little kid's toy, right? I feel like that way is cards were made for kids to enjoy with their parents. And a lot of these card manufacturers, I think they still have that thought in their mind is because it's not to the manufacturers to make a 10. Every card needs to be a 10. They don't care about that shit. They care about making money. They care about selling the product. And I think Fanatics is going to really do well with this. They're already marketing very, very well, they haven't used the term chase yet, but they are creating chases. Have you felt that way as well with the new baseball products coming out since this midsummer?
I kind of watch it from a distance because I don't really collect baseball, like modern baseball or ultra modern, whatever you want to put that distinction. But I see all the hype around the Tom Brady stuff. Like, do you think that they're going to get to the point where they're going to have like celebrity fans and they'll be wearing that team's jersey, and then you can pull an autograph of Celebrity X, and that'll be a chase card?
Well, they already had the special cards that you could get when you bought a hat, a special set. I have not seen any of those cards. I'm sure they're out there. I went to the Fanatic store. You had to go to the Fanatic store to buy the hat. Why not? Why not? I'm shocked that this Christmas they did not have a bundle in their store where you bought your favorite player's jersey, T-shirt, or whatever, and got a card of that player. I was shocked. Do I think that's coming? Yes. Was I shocked that it wasn't this year? Yes. I think that they're going to do that. They already did it PAX with the hat. Did you see Three Good Nerds roasting sport cards on an open fire? No, I did not, Henry. And to each his own. We've gone down that rabbit hole before. I've never heard Three Good Nerds tell me how to hobby or hobby the way you want. To each his own. When it comes, I think when we saw that before, it struck us wrong from somebody that speaks highly of this hobby. I'll look at it though, Henry. Thank you very much. Playoff used to have fans of the game autos in the mid 2000s. Yep. I got a Yuga 3P cap today on clearance. Okay. I think that's a joke because they're not in the playoffs this year. University of Georgia college football down here is pretty big if you haven't noticed, Joe. We're coming fast on first first round. The problem now is retail and sealed wax is still way too expensive to open. There's no way in hell I'm spending $30 to open a blaster. I agree. 25, I could see going from 20 to 25. I can see that very small window because you have to put in an entertainment value. Everybody wants to put the value on the cards. I put an entertainment value as that as well. When I go to a movie, there's an entertainment value. I feel the same way with cards. Cards should have some type of entertainment value. Buying singles is different, but buying a pack, when you get to feel, I have a stack right here of packs right here, keep in front of me. Whenever I get antsy or something, I open up a pack and my troubles go away. And right now, that stuff with Bowman draft, I think a lot of the new people in the hobby that were used to either buying the product and shelving it, or buying it open and flipping it, or speculating, holding on to it long term, whatever the terminology is. When you make cards that expensive right off the jump before it even hits the secondary market, like they did with this Bowman draft, and now they're pumping on their website who the big players are, which I've never seen Topps really do in the past. They might have cover boys, but they're telling you what cards are in there to look for. That's the Fanatics is pumping.
What are they using though? Like, is it just like the top 100 prospects, or
for
like which play? How are they determining who they're going to pump? Is it certain teams prospects or?
yeah, so for Bowman draft, it's the draft that they had this past year, but they'll take out a handful of guys to put in Bowman when next year's season starts. So they can have first cards of a handful of the. So they usually have the number 1 draft pick in this product, and the number 2 draft pick will be in Bowman that comes out early in the year next year. And they'll take out some other ones, and they'll look at the prospective 100 and see what draft guys they didn't make of, and that's when they'll pump. They've gotten really good in the past on holding out some of the players to make the next year's Bowman relative. Why do we have the need for 2 Bowman releases every year? I have no idea. It drives me bonkers. And on top of that, we have a Bowman Chrome released that's separate, because you get Bowman Chrome cards in both Bowman products and paper, but then they have a Bowman Chrome release as well. Then you have Bowman Sapphire and all that, and that goes without saying. But to me, you have one paper release of Bowman and then have Bowman Chrome. You don't really need a Bowman and a Bowman draft. It makes no sense to me. It never has. Because that used to be one of the cheapest products, Joe.
Oh yeah.
Nobody bought Bowman except for guys that were dumb like me and were like, oh, I want to see who the new young guys are. Bowman draft was pretty cheap. And then all of a sudden, the first card auto became a thing. And then the first card Chrome became a thing. And then the speculators that were new to the hobby that came from football and basketball, they didn't understand, oh, they get drafted in 1990, but they don't make it to the pros till 1997. They thought it was going to be like basketball or football, where the guy gets drafted and he's in the majors the next year. It doesn't work like that in baseball. And then in baseball, you pick up guys. Me and Michael had this discussion earlier this week. That some of the guys that people dumped on as a rookie, guess what? They had good seasons. I've been talking about it. Cal Tucker, Ketel Marte. It takes some time. It takes a little while for these guys to marinate a little bit. Then they got it going on. But once the shine rubs off their rookie card, nobody really cares anymore. Then they're considered the next Greg Jeffries or whatever. And if you look at Greg Jeffries, had a good career.
Yeah.
Was a Hall of Fame.
So are the Scott? I guess people can chime in. Are the top prospects, like you're saying, that they're hyping up? Are their first cards going for more than, say, the first cards of the top prospect over the last couple of years?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens is, this has been since right before COVID, because Bowman kind of took off 18, 19. Somebody please help me. And then all of a sudden in 19, Jason Dominguez, his first card, got really, really hyped. I don't know if you remember him. He's in the Yankees organization. He got hurt this year. It seems like he might be the real deal.
Is he expected to play this year in the majors?
Yes, he got called up late last year with the Yankees. He was not supposed to really come up till this year. Yeah, JD, we're just talking about that. And but so what happens is, the next first year guy will come up, and then last year's get pushed, just like in basketball or football. The new rookie comes out, the last year's rookie kind of gets pushed to the side, and everybody's talking about the new rookie. It's a window. If you're selling cards, you have this window. Us that are collecting, we wait for that window to get cool, and then we'll start buying it. I don't care. I will wait 5 years to get a guy that I like now, Bowman's first card. Give it to me at 50 cents. I don't care. I don't need to buy a guy's a rookie, or not even rookie, a first card auto for thousands of dollars, and the man hasn't even played a day in the minors yet. That to me is ridiculous. Vladimir Guerrero's cards were going for $5,000, and then he had a stinker of a rookie season. You can get it for $5, and the dude has been crushing balls. His card bounced back a little bit, but it's nowhere to what it was before his rookie season. And guess what? He really hasn't done anything. He has crushed some balls, but his daddy's a Hall of Famer, and you can get his card for $10. And don't tell me it's because it's junk wax era. It's because people don't understand the history of the game. Because in baseball, it seems like there's a forgotten era. It's not the junk wax era. It's this era between the 70s and 2000s where my age group has done one thing or another. We've gone modern and just keep collecting the way we've always collected, sprinkling in a few vintage, a la that's the way I collect, or similar. Or they go straight vintage, and there's this era that just kind of gets forgotten about. And I guess it's going to be when those guys die that they become more and more sought after. You don't hear George Brett rookie card people running after, going out looking for George Brett rookie cards, or Ozzie Smith, or the Tony Gwynn. We saw somebody post it, but I don't know what it's going to take for those cards to be sought after. Great players, huge players, the inter sanctum of the Hall of Fame, and put those guys on the same pedestal as 50s, 60s golden age guys. I don't know what it's going to take. That's going to be the same person that has to explain to me why Goldschmidt's not a player that everybody wants in baseball right now. He's one of the best first basemen to play the game. Nobody cares. You're going to have to tell me why Matt Olson, nobody talks about him. He had one of the greatest seasons of all time. Nobody talks about it because he didn't win anything. He came in second in a lot of voting. He did get named to second team MLB. Congrats to him, but just because he doesn't hit moonshots that he sits there and watches land and slams his bat or tosses it in the second row and does a dance going around third base, nobody cares about Matt Olson. Those things don't make sense to me as a guy in the hobby and a baseball fan. I'm sure in your hockey world, there's players the same way where you're like, why are these guys' cards not sought after in a certain era? I mean, and let me get back to Upper Deck has caught on to making chases. What did they do in the first series this year? What did they do? They put Bedard as a chase card in their set this year in series 1. Why do that? It's in series 2. Nobody's going to care about that chase card when series 2 comes out, but they did it to hype up their series once people found out, and kept it quiet as best they could until people found out, and then it exploded. Kudos to Upper Deck. That was smart on their part. Very smart. And it seems like the short print is very readily available.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure, like I said, there's guys in all sports that we scratch our head that kind of get shoved to the side, or an era in sports where we're like, why are we not talking about these guys more? You have anything to add to that, Joe?
I think you said it pretty good. Yeah, there's like a lot of players in from the 70s to basically the present, right, that you were talking about. And then, yeah, it's similar in hockey. It's like that, the 5%, the top 5% get all the attention.
Henry, I found an 82 Joe Montana today that Goodwill creased in half. It was damaged in their sorting process. But it's still a Montana 82, right? Said this many times. My childhood was late 90s and early aughts. I love that era, but I've heard consistently since then we were in the next junk era. Yeah, and I think it's a different one. It's because grading numbering has really changed, and having autographs in the packs, all of that has really changed the game, where they could print base cards to forever, but people are looking for the inserts, the numbered cards, the variants. That's what keeps it fresh and not being called that. I think this is going to be the variant era. Start making tons of insert sets, and people acted like it was the beginning of the end, right? I hate the Bowman prospect sets, not knowing which set is which for me for my set build. Yeah, and there's some things you can look on the back, Henry, when looking at. I had to learn early on. They didn't differentiate on the back as well. One way is the early ones that just have numbering without either BD for Bowman Draft or BP for Bowman Prospect, or BCP for Bowman Chrome Prospect, or BCD for Bowman Chrome Draft. If you look at the numbering on the back, right, if it doesn't have those, you can look at the last year that they have any stats, and then look at the bottom. Get your cheater out and look at the bottom year, and if the last stat year is the same as the year on the bottom, it's going to be a Bowman Draft, because they're going to have 23 stats on a 23 card, which is difficult to do when a 2024 comes out at the beginning of the season. So when you're looking at the bottom of the card and it tells you the year of the card, look at that, and it might help you on just a little. It took me still learning how to differentiate some of that stuff with Bowman. JD, yeah. JD is in the New England area. I don't know how this is being, check out Brady stuff. I know. To me, it's not. As a team collector, it's hard to get too attached to prospects and rookies. Even the ones that have success for your team usually end up somewhere else. Yeah, great point, Barry Carlisle. So what I was wanting to get to, Eric said he stopped. He started doing vintage because of the wax era. So for me, the wax era didn't really kill me for that. Vintage, I started leaning more and more to older players, or I don't go in big on a player till after 5 to 10 years in the league. It's because they do change teams. I got too connected with some Mets, and now I have huge collections of non-Mets players. I rather pick their cards up at a later time of some of their, if they become greats. Some of the Mets, not in the past, like Howard Johnson didn't play his whole career with the Mets, or Mike Piazza, or even Jeffries or Strawberry Gooden. They didn't play their whole time with the Mets, but I pick up their Mets stuff now, and I feel like I'm going to have that same issue with Mike Piazza, and it's just tearing me up. So I'm starting to look more and more for David Wright stuff. I love David Wright. So he's just another Met. He never left. He was always a Met. Always will be a Met. So I'm starting to lean more and more that way. And I don't want to call it vintage, just guys that might have already retired or later in their careers. Have you done that in your hobbying? Like, do you player collect your team or any players because they're on a certain team?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I like player. I'm a Penguins fan, so I collect a lot of the big Penguin players that I like. I like the guys that won the Stanley, players that have been on their Stanley Cup winning teams, and I collect their cards in Penguin jerseys.
Right.
And then even some of I collect '90s guys, and I like Dominic Hasek, but I only like him on Buffalo, where he spent like the early part of his career, like after Chicago. And like Patrick Waugh, but I really, for the most part, only like his Montreal Canadiens cards. I like cards when players were early in their careers, opposed to being later at the end of the careers.
Right. Would that change if, like, say they won a Stanley Cup with somebody else? Like they were on a team for not a rental of a year, but maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years with the team and won a Stanley Cup. Would that change your mind to pick up something in that jersey as well?
Not really.
Okay.
Like I have some Patrick Waugh cards on Colorado, but
right.
And the way how it was the later 90s, he was on the Avalanche, so a lot of his bigger and more expensive inserts, he's in Avalanche gear. But
right.
But in terms of like the look of the cards, I just like the Montreal look, and I grew up in the Toronto area, and they were their arch rival, so there was like a ton of Montreal fans around here, so there was always that big rivalry. And Patrick Waugh was every Montreal fan, he was their favorite player from my generation. So
you and Yannick don't square off when y'all see each other, do you? Since he's from the Montreal area, you and Yannick don't square off and have fight. I always, because I tease him about Letterkenny, and I'm like,
Yannick's more of a Quebec Nordiques fan, not a Montreal Canadiens fan.
Right? Yeah. Correct. Don't yell at me, Yannick. I knew that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but yeah, to your point, I like players on certain teams more than like the full career. In terms of like modern guys, like the guys I grew up with, like Ron Francis. I'm a huge Ron Francis fan, but I won't really buy anything where he played for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Right.
You know, I like his Hartford Whalers stuff early in his career, and of course all his Penguin stuff.
So Zach says prospecting has always been a thing. Remember 2011? I think Bryce Harper going for the same price as money might be more, but it's nothing new. Yeah, I know. I've always prospected, Zach, but prospecting, I remember prospecting like open up on a pack and getting a card or going to the card shop or to a show and finding a guy, either his XRC or a young player just entering the majors, and his rookie card is like $1. It's a lot different than what prospecting is now. The Bryce Harper might have been the card to change the game. Probably thank Sports Illustrated for that, making him the cover boy when he's like 15 years old. We'll do that. Zach Pierce, Steven Strasburg, rookie Superfractor went for like $60,000 back then. Yep, and now he's collecting a paycheck sitting at home. Harper hype. I mean, that when he came up, when Sports Illustrated made him the cover boy, I think when he was 14, before he finished his high school and had all about what his plans were, him and his parents, really changed that. I think that was the kind of the beginning of that. I used to sprinkle in vintage and was told so many do this or do that advice. That is the disconnect between actual fans of the sport and the hobby. The hobby has a track record the size of the Empire State Building of being wrong on players. That is so correct, Ed. And, hashtag watch the games. I don't see a lot of videos people collecting Yager. His rookie card are not a cost. Yeah. And I think Yager did that to himself by, still playing. Not being, if you go out and you're a great, I think people still realize you as a great. But if you're playing and holding on to playing forever, I think that really does something to that. People start seeing the old player, not remembering the young player.
Well, his rookies, because it was 1990, his rookies aren't worth that much, but people pay big money for his 90 high-end inserts.
Right. I got you. Yep. Only buy Modano cards with the Red Wings and Brodeur cards with St. Louis Blues. Yeah. See, that's, I can, Dave, and I know that because I've seen you show some of that stuff. Do you do that with Modano with the Red Wings because to piss off Carlos, or?
I think Dave's joking. Dave doesn't buy Brodeur with those St. Louis Blues.
Hey, Dave, you can tell me anything with hockey, and I would go, okay. I'm glad Joe's on here to set me straight.
He only collects Pete Rose in the Expos too.
Hey, I do that. Stooks, it is fun to get excited when you have a rookie that is playing hot like the Twins with Royce Lewis this year. Yeah, I mean, hey, as a Twins fan, you got a lot to be excited about. Really, you do. I mean, I think that team, they finally went out and got the pitching to beat the Yankees, and then they didn't have to play the Yankees. So that team is a lot, and then they're in a division that's down. Even though Tigers made some moves, so I'll be looking out for them. But we say that all the time, so. Carlos is in the house. I didn't hear anybody say his name 3 times, but he showed up anyway. Amish Dave, wait, they played with somebody else, right? Yeah, and I mean, if you're a real fan of the player, not the team they played on, you collect that player no matter what. Like me with Gary Carter, I get his Dodger stuff and San Francisco Giants stuff. It doesn't matter to me. I collect Gary Carter cards.
Yeah, but more modern players, it's easier to be more picky because there's so many cards.
Right. With these guys that are playing now, the reason I like them is because they're on my favorite team. I love Conforto. When Conforto was with Mets, but I can't do it with him with the Giants. I don't care. I watched the games and rooted for him. I like to see him do well. Giants are a fine team, but it's just different. I see him in the Giants uniform. It does nothing for me. I'm gonna pin this comment up. I ignored your previous utterance, and I'm charging Eric as we speak triple for your insolence. I do want to show. I didn't get to it today, and we might go a little over from what I usually do, and that's okay. Joe don't have anywhere to go. He ain't got to work tomorrow, but I want to show this real quick. Just let me know if you got to go, Joe.
No, I'm good.
Let's see. We're going to do a screen because I can't share that. So, this right here on that video last week with four. I want to get it right with respect. 4 collectors. Like the channel. The guys that do the channel admires us. Sometimes they're guests that they have. I would like to talk to a couple of them and just see where their head's at sometimes.
Is Top Hat on that channel?
I don't know. No, Top Hat was on that channel a few weeks ago talking about, or last week, and I know who you're talking about because now I cannot stop calling him that.
You coined the name.
Yeah, Teapot, right? He was on there going by his government name and not even Teapot. So I was really confused. But I was like, hey, isn't that Top Hat? So I wanted to bring this comparison up. They were talking about Frank Thomas just being a pedestrian guy. Also have a video of him hitting moonshots because they said he didn't hit moonshots. This is just an example. So this is him with Mickey Mantle. And Jake, Legends Never Die. He's not afraid to. He says Mickey Mantle was overhyped. I don't know because he changed the game. I look at players at more of what they do in a field as also of what they do off the field. Mickey Mantle transcended the sport, kind of like Babe Ruth, like Frank Thomas, like Ken Griffey Jr. But the first one is WAR. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. I hate WAR. I will bring up a thing that WAR is ridiculous. It's made up. It's just for eggheads to wrap around because they got to have numbers to figure out why something is good or not. And they made up a thing with made up numbers to figure that out. Can't stand it. As you can see, 100 games kind of separate them. Plate appearances, Frank Thomas has more. Hits, Frank Thomas has more. Home runs, Mickey's got him by 15. RBIs, Frank Thomas has more. Stolen bases, Mickey Mantle, when he was younger, could actually run. Frank Thomas was a tight end for Auburn, but never a speed demon. And the stolen base in modern baseball before this year was a little different. You didn't want to take the bat out of the hand of the guy behind you if you got thrown out. And that's about it. Batting average, 301 career batting average for Frank Thomas. On base percentage, almost equal. Slug, equal. OPS, equal. I mean, it's just, of course, the championships, which it takes more to get a championship. All-star appearances, Mickey Mantle, no doubt. MVP, 3-2. Three. Mickey Mantle won it 3. Frank Thomas won it twice. That's a number. Batting title, Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, which they didn't have. So a Triple Crown. And I mean, Frank Thomas DH started DHing a lot. So Mickey, when you look at their careers, don't tell me Frank Thomas was just a guy. I love Frank Thomas. If you notice, number 35 is behind my name.
I didn't realize their numbers were so close.
Didn't either. A friend to the channel sent me that tidbit because I was in a group chat, not ranting, but pointed out what they said. And I was just like, you really have to hate modern baseball to say things like that. Frank Thomas didn't play on a team. I didn't bring up the batting lineups, but who was probably the best player to hit behind Frank Thomas? I mean, was it
Ventura?
Ventura? I think Ventura hit in front of him. So I think it might have been, or one of the Ramirez's, or what was their? Gosh, I can see him. Like he had the long hair as well, like Manny did at one time. So it was. How do you not? Frank Thomas and Ken Griffey were the two guys in 90s baseball forever. Now you have Trout and Bryce Harper as the two guys. The two guys I know Carlos. I know about the Fish Boy. We don't have to go there, but they came in a year apart, and they have parallel. They're compared, and I mean, I'm like, how can you be that far off on that, right? And this war thing. I wanted to go deeper into this.
Does Mickey Mantle's defensive numbers factor into that war, or is it just stolen bases? That's really the only thing you got.
It is. So war is bad. I almost wanted to go. Anybody know how to calculate war? I'll sit here and wait. Anybody graduate from MIT, because that's what you need. Batting runs plus base running runs plus fielding runs. So now you have to calculate, which is how many runs you give up fielding, which to me, when they started that, it's not a bad metric, but it's not a metric you hold somebody to, because that is an opinion. You can't sit there and tell me that a guy let a ball drop in front of him to let 2 runs score, that you could tell me he could have got to it or not, right? Or the guy wouldn't have tagged up from third and scored anyway. It's an opinion. Now, maybe not all the time. You can look at it and go, oh, okay. But to me, that's a positional adjustment, whatever that means. League adjustment plus replacement runs divided by runs per win. Yeah. And I'm pretty good with math. I see that, and I see stuff. That's the F war. That's the Fangraphs war. Then they have the B war, which is baseball prospectus or whatever. War. Batting runs plus divided by runs from GIDP plus fielding runs plus positional adjustment runs plus replacement level runs divided by runs per win. And then that's for fielders. There's a whole different one for pitching. That's why I say you could take your WAR, just like any WAR, and shove it right up somebody's rectum, because I think it doesn't mean anything. Take that sunbed, shine it up nicely, turn it sideways, so waka right up. I think it's a joke. I hear it too much. The first thing when you talk about somebody about Hall of Fame, or if they should be an All-Star or should be this, and they bring up WAR and start comparing WARs, that means you didn't watch the game. To me, you don't know much about that player. If you got to bring up a WAR as a number to categorize that player and to show if he's good or not, I don't, and not look at regular baseball. I know batting average is kind of sold out to on base percentage. Does hockey have anything like that? I know.
Yeah, they do, but I guess they have those stat nerds like baseball does that really get into it, but it's not as commonly referred to by like the everyday media or like collectors on their puck possession, offensive, like scoring chance.
Well, see, I really like and I know it's not a great the perfect metric, but I always liked your plus or minus, your goal scored while on ice thing that they have.
Yeah, but the advanced guys hate that stat. So
of course they do. It's too straightforward. The guy wasn't in prison, had nothing to do with that goal or not, but in the bigger thing, it shows a bigger picture to me. If you look at more than just a small. Now, Mike O did point out to me, and I know if you watch JD Clearing the Mechanism podcast, which if you love baseball and collecting, that's an awesome, awesome podcast on JD's site. The guy he has on there that knows he does prospect and does pretty well. A lot of knowledge on there, Ed, a lot of knowledge. I feel like he has a 6-year prime window of their 6 best years in a row WAR. I can get on board with that a little bit, and I'm not, after seeing what WAR is, I don't really love that, but it's still, if you're going to do it, because WAR tends to lean to the person with longer careers because it's added on at a yearly base. It's not
an average.
Right. So, yeah, of course, Don Mattingly's WAR is going to be less than Frank Thomas's or somebody else that had a 20-year career. He had a shorter career, but you can't tell me that career didn't mean the same. I hate that metric. I wish it was outlawed and people that said it on the street got punched in the face automatically. And it's one of those sabermetric things. I saw sabermetrics used in the playoffs for the first time where they were planning out innings, like the managers, and it cost Toronto badly. There's still got to be some knowledge in what your eye tells you in the regular. Those numbers have been in baseball since the beginning of baseball, right? The box score. Average, I know, is different now. It's more on base percentage and runs driven in and stuff like that. Getting on base means a lot more than just batting average. But man, that drives me crazy. I just want to talk about that real quickly and touch on some of the other stuff that was on there. Overall, on that one, they talked about real quickly, they talked about the rookie card of the 90s of guys that made the Hall of Fame. Overall, great talk. But some things just kind of was like, huh? Why did you not pick that guy higher? And then they love Jeter. And then one guy pointed out pretty quickly that how can you put Jeter that high in the ranking as player when he wasn't the best shortstop on his team. Alex Rodriguez was. So, and that made, I was like, good point. Uh, so I thought it was very good. Our friend Victor was on there, friend of the channel, Victor. I invited him on because I don't know the other guys. I would love to have any of the guys that were on that. I would Jake. I've invited him on the channel a couple of times. He seems Sunday night seems to be a busy night for him, which he has a young family. I completely understand. But
so where did Frank Thomas finish on that list?
5th or something like that. I watched that video twice. Didn't take notes. I was just watching it because I couldn't believe some of the things that were said. It was very minute things, but you know that you always make those huge, right? If it hits you wrong, you always remember the meals you hated over the meals you love.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that old adage. Let me just go through these real quick. Man, a lot of people. I ignore it. Let's see. Joe should stick around. This pregame is fine and all, but when these guys start live, yeah. Carlos saves the day. Thank goodness someone has some sense. Zach, in the giving season, I can't allow Scott to deny Eric his chance to give. Eric thought this was a free place to watch. Not happening. Wesker Griff, Frank Thomas was a man of honor too. He played the game the right way, high integrity. And I believe that, but I told Ed and some of these other guys this. During the era of steroids, which I believe we're very much still in, when you see these guys, I'm thinking they're not doing the testing as rigorously as they once were, because if they did, I think more people would probably be watching on the sideline. Albert Bell for a couple years. Yeah. Albert Bell behind Frank Thomas. I was thinking that, Dave, but I couldn't remember when Albert Bell was there. Don't call me Joey. Without going into the dark war place, the positional deal with center field versus first base DH is a big factor. That is correctly this right here. So the war is right here. This war, when they had those 2 wars up for I already cleared it. For Mickey Mantle and Frank Thomas, there looked like a big discrepancy, right? That was like, oh my gosh, that's the difference. But Mickey Mantle played center field versus Frank Thomas playing first base, and a lot of his time was DH where he didn't field. So how do you differentiate that? And what Frank Thomas did for first baseman. The reason I know about Frank Thomas, I'm a Frank Thomas fan, when he was at Auburn and these guys said he didn't hit majestic home runs, he hit one completely out of their baseball stadium into the middle of the parking lot. And I was like, oh my God, who's this big dude? He wasn't Big Hurt yet. He was Frank Thomas, who also played tight end on their football team. And I was like, I like this guy. And he got drafted the next year. He was on the big club, and I was like, I was hooked. I was a Big Hurt fan.
But do you think he's remembered less because he you probably view him as being behind like Mark McGwire, Griffey, Barry Bonds as being a power hitter?
Well, that's part of the case is they were hitting, 50 to 70 home runs a year, and he's hitting consistently his 35, right?
And he hit for average too, but he wasn't one of like the predominant high average guys like a Tony Gwynn.
Right.
Or Wade Boggs, or
right, because even him hitting over 300 or well in the 300s for a lot of his year. I mean, he ended with 301, so that means he probably had a high of maybe 330 ish and a low of 275 or whatever. When you start looking at that, most of those guys that hit home runs, they're lucky to bat 250. I don't know what McGwire's, but a lot of those are. He had a great eye at the plate, had a lot of walks. Wesker Griff, what was General Sherman's for? Right. He just bought a Sherman. If you watch his channel, he shows off. I sent him a video or a picture of a General Lee one here at the show I was at.
The car?
I'll give a like for this proper war slander I'm here for. Yeah, there was actually like an 1886 set at this show. We're way overpriced, or I would have some of them. The vintage was really overpriced at this show. There was a table where the guy had book price, but my price. When I see that on a sticker, and then on a lot of the cards, he had them pre-graded. This is a 4, and I'm like, well, if you think it's a 4, get it graded. I watched Dale Murphy. Yeah, I feel the same way. I've told you before. I feel like he's one of the guys that's getting kind of robbed, especially with the whole Harold Baines issue. It's really not that tough. Eric's guy, Hal Gill, is the GOAT. All others are measured down. So let me get so Hal Gill is a great Bruin, right?
He was a Bruin.
Was a Bruin. Maybe not a great Bruin, but
he played for almost every team. He was a journeyman defenseman.
Okay. That's why I don't want to make any more assumptions about a hockey player. The only Mantle number that matters is his BAL. Let's see. Gary, is it okay to look at WAR and stats over the older players like Dick Allen? I never saw him play, so how do I judge the older players? I don't think WAR is the thing. If you never seen them, just look at their stat lines. I really do think that, but you also read about him. Dick Allen is a very interesting character. To me, it's a shame that he's being left out of the Hall. I thought he should have got in the last vote. He's not in this year's vote. I really do think Dick Allen, played in the 60s where we were having huge social change in this country. And Dick Allen was part of that. And I just think, that with the baseball, and he was a great baseball player, better than great. I think he's deserving. But you look at WAR, Gary, and I really think, because a lot of it is just construed nonsense. It's opinionated on the top of it. If you're talking Thomas, he hit 353 and 347 when he won the batting title. Yeah, look at that. Thank you, Carlos, coming in with the numbers. I mean, and I'm sure that those years he hit 30-some home runs and had over 100 RBI, maybe 40 home runs. And he played in a ballpark that was not conducive to home runs. Old White Sox Stadium, you had to hit monsters just to get it to the front row. And that wasn't talked about either. Yankee Stadium, even though, to be a right-hander in Yankee Stadium is hard. What Aaron Judge does is awesome, because being a left-hander, they had the short porch. But what Judge is doing is pretty miraculous in Yankee Stadium for a right-hander going to left field. You got to give props where props are need to be. Those types of shows can be fun, though, especially if you rattle the dealers for still seeking 2021 prices. Yeah, Ed, I would have loved to seen you here with some of this vintage guys. It would have been. Dick Allen is a Hall of Famer, but he was an outspoken African American man. When that type of thing wasn't allowed, the media tried to destroy him. Yeah, and see, that's what I was talking about. He played in an era, even the 60s was really big on a social change in this country, but there were a large group of people, even to this day, and I have brought this up with somebody was talking about the 53 mantle, and I'm thank you for hanging in here. The 53 mantle being how much it's graded, and they don't think because how much is graded compared to the Willie Mays of that year. And I think I'm getting this right, Ed? That they don't believe that the cards got thrown in the Hudson. Well, there's a lot of different things that go into why that card wasn't graded other than how many was made. You're in an era where there was a large part of this country that didn't collect that color of skin. You have to remember social issues of the time. And I think that is one of the outliers in that. There's going to be many outliers. And if anyone that you could think of is an outlier, long time watching, first time commenter. Good info. Hey, Card Cutter, what's up, brother? He's been having some great videos himself. Garrett, so check him out. Check out a lot of these people if you haven't. Gary's had a few videos here lately. Ed, of course, Amish Dave. If you haven't checked out the Insert Revolution podcast, IRP, on mostly Tuesdays. Every once in a while they throw a curveball, but it's the curve hangs and you can hit it and watch it on Wednesday and watch it on replay and double time, and you can get there 2 hours done in 1 hour. Carlos has his year in review today. Very interesting watch. Watched that today before I got on. I know I feel like I was kind of all over the place. I hit some big topics, I think, that could have probably been a lot longer show. I know I'm a lot longer than I used to be. If you haven't checked out For Collectors, please do. I like their channel, love it. I don't mean to bash it. I just wanted to bring up some things that I watched on there, some topics that I just wanted to touch on. I watched the 80s ones today. It was pretty good. I didn't agree with the way they were talking about Ken Griffey. I don't know what Ken Griffey, we changed his dynamic as being not a great player. I don't know where that came about. Another guy that transcended the sport. U.S. sports cards. Heck, I bet there are a lot of folks who collect Kaepernick cards this day. People value cards of certain players for all sorts of reasons. That's 100% true, U.S. sports cards. And the first time I've seen this name, welcome to the channel. Thank you. If you haven't, please hit one of the thumbs. And then after I sign off, if you don't mind, I know Gary does it, Big Scott. And that's Bink Scott, not Big Scott. There is two of us. He's a much prettier of a man than me. We definitely could see the difference. Please come back and just leave a short, hey, I was here, seen it, done that, got the t-shirt, whatever. In the comments really helps the algorithm for our whole hobby, all the channels. If we want to grow our small little niche of this part of YouTube, we got to band together as a brother sisterhood and help each other out. And Joe does not have a channel, Dr. Disrespect, on the Instagrams, posting cool ass cards. One to me, the National with the Beckett's, autographing a Beckett. He had me do it on the Gary Carter page. Having Victor sign the article, that's going to be something I remember for the rest of my life. The rookie card article and a Beckett. Thank you. Hey, you hit the. Thank you, sir. Grew up a White Sox fan. Had to meet the Big Hurt. It's funny. I wasn't called that playing softball. I did wear Big Hurt shoes and played first base. We were 35, and I coached the team. So our jerseys, we played night games. We wore black. On weekends, a lot of times we wore gray and white. So I made sure our colors were White Sox colors. Yeah, I was team Big Hurt, but I love Griffey as well. Joe's the man. Portobello's brother. Yeah. So we will be in Chicago. Joe, I'll have you here, and I know I'll have you on between here and now. Again, if you want to be on the channel, just hit me up. If you clear my team of guys who will let you on, guys and gals. There's an extensive program that I have to put you through before you're accepted to be on the channel. Not really, but I just like to say that, make myself sound professional. Just let me know. Like I said, Joe is on here tonight. Hit me up. Wasn't really a hockey topic per se or music topic. He's a huge music guy. But it's a card topic. And I don't care what sport it is. Everybody has a say and everybody has an opinion. And I love to hear them. So until next time, like, share, tell a friend. And until next time, what is it, Ed? See ya.